My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, and it was driving me up the wall. Mom had ignored my calls all day, then had the audacity to text me, claiming I'd never tried to reach her. I had a mountain of missed calls to prove otherwise, each one more frantic. Like now, for instance, the familiar BZZZ in my jeans pocket nearly pushed me over the edge as I reached our front door. I was all set to give Mom a piece of my mind when a voice caught me off guard. Annabeth. Mrs. Waylay, our next-door neighbor, was peeking at me through the crack in our fence with a gentle smile. Mrs. Waylay was well into her 80s, but sweet as she was, Mrs. Waylay had a habit of mixing up our names. Today, I was apparently Annie, though I looked nothing like my roommate. I was a looming brunette, she was a tiny blur of gold. I figured even with bad eyes, it was clear who was who. Apparently not. The old woman tilted her head, wrinkled eyes wide with curiosity. Her smile faded. "Didn't you say you were moving out?" Instead of correcting her, I smiled sweetly. "No, we're pretty happy here, Mrs. Waylay." She shook her head. "Annabeth, you said you were moving. You told me yourself." No, I did the smiling and nodding thing. "We're staying here. I think you're confused." Before she could respond, I yanked the door open and made my escape. The house was unusually warm. The summer heat was brutal, but at least we had air conditioning, and the pros outweighed the cons of this ancient house. Maybe 100 years old, maybe 1,000. But cozy. Falling apart? Absolutely. But also cheap, and it had charm, a strange mix of modern decor and vintage quirks. We had 2 bathrooms, and the tub was practically a swimming pool. Case in point, not many people were welcomed into their living room by a grand Victorian-era fireplace. It was more of a hole in the wall that should probably be condemned, but it was fun to show off to visitors. "This is where we keep the bodies," I used to tell the newbies we brought around for drinks. Apparently, the place used to be a psychiatric hospital, which only upped the macabre appeal. I shrugged off my jacket. The hallway light was off, so I flicked it back on, dumping my backpack on the shoe rack, which was emptier than usual. Maybe Annie was finally getting rid of her babies. "Anyone alive?" "Nope," a familiar voice bounced back. "Harry." My phone buzzed. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Sure enough, a missed call, just now. From Mom. Beneath it, a text. "Mika, please call me." I ignored her for once and strode into our lounge, the epitome of comfort. The windows were wide open, fresh summer air filtering through the blinds. The room was a mess, a coffee table cluttered with books and papers, our ratty Craigslist couch awkwardly sitting in front of the TV. The carpet was out of fashion decades ago, and the pattern rug in front of the fireplace had to be haunted. But it was home. I collapsed into battered leather. The lump sitting next to me was still in his pajamas, thick red hair hanging in unblinking eyes. Harry Sr. was my recluse of a housemate who never went to class. Smart. Pretentious. Cute. 3 words I'd never say to his face. Harry was a mad genius, and that was his downfall. He was Dexter without the laboratory, and slightly more unhinged. He even had the evil laugh. He'd be up at 3 a.m. mixing concoctions that could land him on a watch list while the rest of us were asleep. When I first met him, his icebreaker was, "Yeah, I'm trying to make the elixir of life." Totally normal. I knew Harry in 2 modes. When he had something to fix, he became hyperfixated and fully obsessed. Then he'd eventually burn out and resort to caveman brain. Rinse and repeat. Despite the sticky summer heat, Harry was curled up with his knees to his chest, playing a video game in his very own Harry-shaped dent in the couch. Trying to remove Harry from his dent meant certain death. When my phone buzzed violently on my knee, I ignored it. It buzzed again. I stuffed it between my legs. Harry shot me the side eye, focused on the final boss. He was doing it again. Trying not to smile and ultimately failing, the corners of his mouth curving into a smirk. He tried to shove me off when I made myself comfy, using his knees as a leg rest. I chose to ignore him, instead following his character as he jumped over a pile of corpses, dove onto a horse, and charged toward a looming leviathanish creature. "Sue, what's going on?" he asked casually. I could tell by his expression he didn't care. Harry was our neurodivergent couch potato. When things happened, he either didn't care, didn't notice, or both. Still, at least he was making an effort. "Mom keeps calling me," I said, relaxing into familiar couch creases. Harry snorted. "So, answer her." "Well, yeah, but she keeps putting the phone down on me. She's driving me insane." I jumped up, restless. I was thirsty, so I dragged myself into the kitchen. When I opened the refrigerator to grab a beer, it was warm, sitting on the top shelf. Weird, the refrigerator was definitely on. I made coffee, but the milk was spoiled. So, no beans for me then. I slammed the fridge shut. "Did you guys break the refrigerator?" I laughed, tossing Harry a beer that he easily caught with one hand. He shot me a Dorito-stained grin. If it's broken, it wasn't me. Which meant it was him. I left Harry to slay the final boss. I needed to shower and change into something that wasn't glued to my skin. I was starting to regret wearing a sweater when it was teetering on 90 degrees outside. I felt my phone vibrate again on the way upstairs as I awkwardly jumped over Annie, who was sitting on the bottom step with her head nestled in her arms. I gave her a pat on the head. Annie was hungover. I could tell from her groan when I nudged her. Plus she was still wearing her outfit from the night before, jeans and a cropped tee, her golden curls spilling onto her knees. Fun fact, when I first met Annabeth Mara in my freshman year of college, I thought she was a bitch. She gave off, like, "do not talk to me" vibes. Annie had a "do not talk to me" smile, so the whole time we were talking, I was convinced she hated me. I realized I was wrong when Annabeth grabbed my face with her manicure, turned me towards her, lips split into a smile, and said, "I feel like we're going to be besties." Fast forward 5 years, and we were in our 20s. Annabeth was my non-biological sister, with a heart bigger than Jupiter, and 0 filters. Annie's biggest flaw was her borderline alcohol addiction. I loved her, but we were planning an intervention. She also had a mouth like a sailor and simmering anger issues, especially when she didn't get her own way. "I'm fine," she mumbled into her lap. "I'm gonna go to sleep. Like, right here." I nudged her with my foot. "On the stairs." "It's comfy." Annie paused, her voice collapsing into an audible gulp. "Also, if I look up, I think I'm going to throw up." "I just cleaned the floor," Harry snapped from the lounge. I could tell by his tone he was losing to the final boss, slightly strained, teetering on a yell. It wouldn't be long before he started attempting to bite his controller, swiftly followed by begging. "Don't move her, Mika," he warned. "If she upchucks, you're cleaning." "Listen to Dad," Annie murmured into her knees. Harry didn't have a dad bone in him. The only reason he had been christened the dad of the house was due to his ability to cook without poisoning us. Annie rested her head against the wall, still curled into herself, and I hopped past her. Harry was looking after her in his own way. The puke bucket wedged between her legs was enough. Keeping my distance, I checked my phone again. It was Mom. Unsurprisingly. 5 missed calls. "Mika, please call me." The text lit up my screen. "Sweetie, you can't ignore me." I started up the stairs, sending a voice note instead. "Hey, Mom, it's me." As I made my way up, I passed Jasper. Roommate number 3 glanced up from his phone mischievously. Jasper LaCroix, the rich kid with a soul. His hair was the usual tousled mess, falling over amused eyes that were the perfect shade of coffee grounds. His outfit was brow-raising, a suit jacket over one of Annie's old BTS shirts and jeans. His skin was glowing, a result of his vigorous self-care routine applied every single morning without fail. Jasper had to be meeting with his parents. Otherwise, he'd still be in his robe. As well as being an insufferable socialite, he was nosy as hell. He paused to listen, a curious smile tugging at his lips. I waved him off, and he laughed. The voice message was getting too long. Mom had a withering attention span. I reached the top of the stairs. "Look, I don't know why you keep calling me and then ignoring my calls. I don't know if there's something wrong with your phone, or I could sense Jasper breathing down my neck. I ignored him. I keep telling you to use a different app. Texts are buggy. Just use Facebook." In the corner of my eye, Jasper was mimicking me, complete with exaggerated hand gestures. When I turned and shook my fist at him in mock warning, he threw up his hands with a grin, mouthing, Okay, you win. Anyway, I shot him a look, and his smile widened. Jasper LaCroix had a shameless fascination with me and my mother butting heads, and inserting himself into my family drama. Maybe he was a LaCroix after all. I gestured for him to leave, not so subtly threatening his life with a glare. But he didn't back down, pretending not to understand me with manic hand gestures. "I've got to go change," I said, distracted by his flailing arms. "Call me when you get this, okay?" I ended the voice note and stuffed my phone in my pocket. Jasper tilted his head, leaning against the wall with his arms folded. I often wondered if his obsession stemmed from not having a mother of his own, just a sociopathic father. There was a lot of darkness bubbling beneath the polished facade of the LaCroix family. Affairs, secret children, and the never-ending feud over who would inherit the company. Jasper was the heir, after all. He, however, had zero interest. Like I said, he was a rarity, a rich kid with a soul. A materialist, yes. His closet was an ego embarrassment. The eldest LaCroix held a simmering distaste for his own bloodline, evident in his tonal shift when he was around them. Jasper made it very clear he had no intention of inheriting old money. I attempted to sidestep him to get past, but he was a 6-foot-something roadblock with an impeccable jawline. He stood, brow raised, smug as usual as he peered down at me, arms crossed. "Your mom." I rolled my eyes. "My mom. Emancipation." Annie groaned from the bottom step. Jasper grinned. "What she said. Emancipation. The answer to all of our problems." He winked, stepping back to let me through. I was surprised he wasn't demanding I solve a riddle. I darted past him before he could ruffle my hair. But he didn't, already descending down the stairs, back to scrolling through his phone. "You need to take your meds, dude," he said. "You haven't taken them in days." He was right. I had been putting off taking them. Shooing Jasper back downstairs, I made a quick stop in the bathroom, or what I like to call, our swimming pool. The tub took up half the room, a porcelain rectangle resembling a Roman bath. Our shower was awkwardly wedged into a corner, where my eye caught mold above the shower head. I tried calling Mom one more time as I rifled through the pill cabinet. I grabbed my usual anti-allergy meds and the headache pills that always made me nauseous. I took them quickly, but another bottle caught my eye, unopened, with my name scrawled in Dr. Adams's spidery loops. I didn't remember being prescribed them. Still, I took 2, as instructed, and washed them down with tap water. I checked my phone sitting on the edge of the faucet. I was sure I'd called Mom, but the call must have cut off. I tried again, and to my surprise, she picked up on the first ring. I slumped down, perching myself on the edge of the bathtub. "Finally," I said, leaning back and crossing my legs. The metallic taste of the pills was creeping back up my throat and sticking to my tongue. "Mom, you really need a new..." "Mika!" she cried, and something in her voice jolted my thoughts. Mom was crying. But Mom never cried. "Mika, where the hell are you?" "We're at the funeral." "Oh God, you promised you'd come." Something ice-cold slithered down my spine. It was suddenly too cold. I shivered, but that creeping feeling didn't leave, skittering under my skin. A sharp odor crept into my nose, a combination of mold and my own body odor. When I tipped my head back, the mold had spread across the ceiling. The tub was full of cobwebs. I stumbled back downstairs. Everything was duller, a thick, hazy mist over my eyes. "Jasper," I spoke to the empty hallway, to silence stretching all the way downstairs. But he was gone. Annie, too, no longer lounged on the bottom step.